The next two speakers come to us from the Kūpuna Collective. Lindsey is the program manager for Kūpuna Initiatives at the Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute. She's a graduate from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Chapman University, and Kamehameha Schools. And she values working with community partners to address drivers of health inequity, particularly among Kānaka ʻŌiwi. And Kiara, who's our second speaker, is an AmeriCorps VISTA working for the Kūpuna Collective. She's from a place that I will mispronounce in the Philippines and San Diego, as well as being a graduate of Stanford University. So community-based organizing has always been at the core of what she does, and she takes any chance to uplift community efforts and community voices wherever they go. So welcome, Lindsey and Kiara.
Before we just jump right in, thank you for inviting us, Jeanette. It's great to be here. And thank you so much, Melanie, for sharing and opening that space for not only us to learn about all the things that you're doing in your community is pulling through, but also for the reminder, right? Like strength can look different and there's strength in vulnerability. And I feel like that's a lesson in life that we should carry. And I don't know, I just keep those words kind of close to my heart now. And thank you. Yeah, there's like a lump in my throat as you're presenting, because it seems so distant when you're not going through it, right? And so to hear from you directly, I really applaud your vulnerability and your strength. And it's just an honor to share space with you all.
And I wanted to also, we've introduced our two speakers, but I also wanted to say I learned about the Kūpuna Collective at one of those first events that we were out in the community and seeing people face to face. And, everybody in Kokua was so busy during the pandemic and doing all of this. And I was like, wow, look at all these other things that happened during the pandemic that brought people together and fed people. And you're going to talk about what you're doing, but I think that it is so important that we know what other people are doing. How do we support each other? And then through that synergy that we can really be, building our community that much stronger. So I am very, very pleased that you folks agreed to speak today. And so I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, we truly, I think I speak for all of them on the call, like we truly have the best partners doing this work in Hawaii. Not to brag, but kind of bragging. Oops, give me one moment. So thank you for the beautiful intro. Again, my name is Lindsey Ilagan. I'm the Kūpuna Program Manager at the Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute, or Hi-Fi for short. Just some brief info about Hi-Fi if you're unfamiliar. We are the Public Health Institute representing Hawaii in the national network of public health institutes. And we really center our work around partnering with others to improve policy systems and environments where we age and we work and play and worship and build our communities. And so we do this through issue-based advocacy, education, technical assistance, capacity building. Our programs span from Kūpuna Initiatives, where I am, to Keiki initiatives as well, farm to school, tobacco cessation, drug and alcohol policies, food systems transformation, and all sorts of other programs that are related to public health. Kiara, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Kiara Bacasen again. I'm new to all of this. I just started this VISTA-ship 6 months ago, and I only have 6 months to go, but it's been quite a journey getting involved in not just the Kūpuna Collective and already all the breadth that aging has, but as Lindsey said, all the amazing kind work that Hi-Fi is doing. And so it's been an honor and privilege getting to do this for 6 months and to get to present what we've been up to you guys today. So thank you so much again for the space.
And so I just wanted to kind of set the table a little bit before we jump into talking about our work. And so this is not new for you folks on the call. But one benefit of our public health advancements over the years is that we get to live longer lives. And so that also means that we have a growing Kūpuna population. So 1 in 4 Hawaii residents are 60 years old or greater. However, not all Kūpuna have that social support or families here to support them. And so 57,000 Kūpuna live alone. And many Kūpuna have a chronic disease. 77% have multiple chronic diseases. Hawaii is not an easy place to live. About 43% of our Kūpuna are struggling to make ends meet, which either means they fall below the poverty line or are right above it in the ALICE population, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. 37% of Kūpuna have a disability, and over 35,000 Kūpuna have limited or no internet access, meaning they're unable to participate in our digital world. And so, the aging network is not new. I know it's great to see some familiar faces and names on this call. A lot of our aging network partners have been pillars of this work for many years, even decades. And I'm going to go into some of these efforts that built the foundation of our Kūpuna Collective. And I just wanted to kind of time travel for a bit and tell the story of how we got to be. So if you folks are familiar with Age Friendly Honolulu, it is a city and county initiative and part of AARP's national network. It started in 2014 in Hawaii. And the goals of Age Friendly Honolulu is to ensure older adults are active and socially engaged. They have meaningful roles in the community and they're able to participate in their community in the ways that they want to and can contribute. And we want to remove barriers together to support community inclusion and accessibility for persons of all abilities. And this is what the work kind of looks like on the ground. So on the top left is a community resilience workshop talking about, this was particularly in Waikiki. And so figuring out how we could make sure we could support Kūpuna in that specific area in case of a disaster. Going down, that's a walking audit to look at the ways Kūpuna can navigate their neighborhood. There's the We Are Dementia Friends initiative on the bottom right, and on the top is some workers going out into the community to do home modifications to help Kūpuna age in place. So thinking about our work during the pandemic, if you remember at that time, that was when we had a huge influx of homebound individuals of all ages, but including Kūpuna, right? And we know a lot of our Kūpuna live alone. And if you remember at that time, that was when we were going to the grocery stores and there were empty shelves, and it was a really harrowing situation. And so the Kūpuna Food Security Coalition was formed under the leadership of the City and County of Honolulu, Weinberg Foundation, AARP, and some other key partners. And it was really formed as this rapid response to make sure there's food on the table, to do that direct food distribution for those that were homebound, who may have limited mobility or transportation, lack of social support, all of those things. And not only the food, but also linking that with wraparound health and social service support. So friendly check-in calls, making sure everything was okay, that their utilities were on, that they had referrals to other programs if they needed, getting set up with their computers or internet so that they could participate in online senior center programs and all sorts of things like that. We started with about 40 organizations statewide with many of our partners on Oahu from many different sectors. So we had some restaurants, we had kind of our typical partners that we work with throughout the aging network. We also had like valet drivers who weren't working at the time to do meal deliveries. We had folks coming together and try to figure out how we can work better together to make sure we were really maximizing our impact. And we had the honor at Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute to provide that backbone support of convening people in a space and doing some of that data analysis to really maximize that impact. So we were really behind the scenes. It was all of our partners that were really doing the good work. So within 6 months, we were able to distribute 1.2 million meals. And we were able to provide 30,000 wraparound health and social services. At the height, we were able to serve over 8,000 unique Kūpuna and also link over 4,800 Kūpuna with SNAP and other long-term food assistance programs. this is just a quick visual of what it looked like. So on the top is March 2020. And this was kind of like our baseline data of our affordable senior properties that we were serving, the number of seniors in each zip code. And then this is what it looked like in 2020 on the bottom. So a lot of red to green, which we were happy to see. These are just some other examples of what the work looked like, and some of the folks that were leading the work on the front lines, preparing meals, and trying to honor our kupuna's food preferences and medical requirements, and just putting a lot of love into their food. We had a lot of workers that were reusing food or redirecting the food that were supposed to go to hotels and other big buyers of food. And so repurposing that for kupuna, which is a great way to leverage our limited resources at the time. There's also a lack of cold storage, just making sure we were able to store that food properly. And so partners all across the state stepped up and offered their service or whatever they could do to support the larger effort. And so everything was delivered to the kupuna wherever they were, whether that be at home or at housing, shared senior housing properties, or adult daycares too. They had their network and were able to leverage their volunteers to check up on their kupuna and their families and whatnot. So rain or shine, they went out into our communities and make sure they had food. And for many of our kupuna, this was their only reliable source of food. And it was even life-saving at times. And so much credit goes out to our partners for leading this work day in and day out. So shifting gears a little bit, vaccines became available. And so we were able to leverage a lot of those same partnerships and a lot of those strategies that worked well for food distribution for vaccine access. So when it first became available, it was at mass vaccination sites, which works well for the masses, but it doesn't work well for those that are left out, right? So those with limited transportation, mobility, language needs, and so on and so forth. So we were able to partner through the Kūpuna Vaccination Outreach Group, which was a separate group at the time, and we provided that backbone support as well. And as a result, we're able to support Kūpuna in getting vaccinated, and we got 100.0% vaccination rates. So it's very similar rates on neighbor islands as well. And it was a huge success. And I would just do a shout out to our Kūpuna at that time. You know, the other age groups were kind of lagging behind once it became available to them. But our Kūpuna really led the way for showing what it's like to malama your community and be leaders in this vaccination effort. So we were really impressed by their leadership. And then shifting gears one more time. Then we realized, of course, that this digital divide was not being properly addressed. Right. And so a lot of our partners were already providing this work to bridge that gap, whether it be helping Kūpuna get enrolled into affordable connectivity programs, or even going to their home and setting it up for them, shifting programs online for those that were living in rural areas, and doing classes too, and even teaching Kūpuna to be teachers of those classes so that they could help their peers and access the digital world. So that was where we formed the Kūpuna Digital Inclusion Group. And these are some of the photos of our classes and some products that we were able to partner with AARP Hawaii on. So with all of that, we had some takeaways. We knew that working in community led to better understanding of these Kūpuna issues across communities. I think for many of our partners, they have such an ingrained knowledge of the Kūpuna and people of all ages that they serve within their specific community. But being able to talk with each other and see what are the trends across communities without overgeneralization was really valuable. And we were able to kind of use that unified voice to elevate some of these issues. We're able to coordinate a little bit better so we don't oversaturate areas and we don't leave anybody out or any geographies out or behind. And then also it helped us to be better at leveraging the resources that were coming down from the federal government at the time, and just figuring out how we can best use our limited resources and maximize that impact. And so the major takeaway being that we're everything, like our value is rooted in our partnerships, and our collective impact showed that we were greater than the sum of our individual parts. We're all serving the same kupuna, doing a lot of the same work, and addressing a lot of the same issues. So instead of working in silos, we combined all of those groups and we formed the Kūpuna Collective. And so from here, I'll pass it on to Kiara to talk about what the collective is and where we are today.
Yeah, and not just what the collective is today, but also where we hope to go in collaboration with our current membership and potentially future membership, if there's anyone here who finds that this is something that they want to join in. But first, just to put it out there, our vision is that all generations in Hawaii thrive in a vibrant, age-empowered society that maximizes the health, independence, and engagement of Kūpuna. And our mission is that the Kūpuna Collective will bring together a collaborative network of partners who elevate critical issues, mobilize community assets, and drive innovative solutions that support and empower Kūpuna in Hawaii. And so in the next slide, you'll see just some numbers of how we've grown. And it's incredible because we started off with those 40 member organizations focused only on food security. And then suddenly we've grown to now 157 organizations focused on everything from caregiver support to fraud to music and spirituality. It reflects the fact that aging is inherently intersectional and touches everyone here in Hawaii in so many different ways. Convening a community like this is also not really easy because we come together in monthly meetings, through newsletters, but we're spread out across the islands. Like that's a fact. And so, but we find that convening is worth it because we find the opportunity to share accurate, timely knowledge with one another, from one another. For example, 2 meetings ago, we made sure we focused on vaccines and the latest news on COVID to ensure members were well prepared for the rollouts happening this month. And so that kind of forward thinking work is one of the things like we really try and do with the collective. Opening that flow of information across such a wide network allows us to also respond to changes happening, as well as to connect not just Kūpuna to services that exist, but also ourselves to the knowledge and support from other members. That's really one of the keys of creating community like this. And ultimately, aging work is just difficult, especially when everyone only talks about the negatives and the problems that emerge with getting older. So coming together the way we do, we find respite and regain the energy we need to move forward together. And that's kind of the ways we work and how we've grown today. In parallel to our work convening the collective, Lindsey and others have been working really hard to bring the strengths of Hi-Fi together with governmental, nonprofit, and for-profit entities to continue targeting those larger issues that you talked about that were highlighted by the pandemic but still affect folks today. For example, for digital inclusion vaccine outreach, the Kūpuna Collective has served as a platform to connect on-the-ground partners with funding and other resources that make digital inclusion and vaccinations a reality. So that's really awesome. And together with the Center of Aging, we're also launching a workforce development opportunity to really train liaisons to navigate what you all, I'm sure, know to be a very difficult landscape care options for long-term care planning. And so those are just some of the very large collaborations we're doing that have like a really long time frame. And here's just pictures of some of the on-the-ground work we did. At the bottom middle is we like going out to support our members too, actually show up and be there with them. And so the bottom middle is from when we went to the Kūpuna Rainbow Town Hall hosted by the Hawaiʻi LGBT Foundation, where they're really working to highlight the ways that LGBTQ plus Kūpuna, the specific issues they face, and the way the system isn't built to care and understand the issues that they face because of their identity. So we love showing up to our community. We love showing up to help when we can, and not just work behind the scenes, even though that is a majority of what we do. And then here is just a quote from when I was speaking to our old Hi-Fi coworker, Susan Mercado, about the best ways to approach sustaining the Kūpuna Collective. Because, you know, my position is actually about capacity building and finding ways to sustain the collective. And instead, she said, sometimes groups come together to accomplish something and then they disband. And that isn't a bad thing. What matters is that we remember those relationships and how to activate them when needed. And she made me realize that while we hope the Kūpuna Collective is here to stay, what we really need to invest in is making sure people know who to reach out to and how. We invest in making sure folks feel empowered to navigate this larger network and the many complex topics that come up in aging. And ultimately, we need to invest in empowering our members to be conveners and connectors in their own right, so that this amazing moment of collaborative action lasts, whether this collective lasts or not. And last but not least, in all that we do, we're really just trying to figure out how to change the narrative, sharing the stories that are gifted to us. People have also come to me in my check-in interviews that I did with our members, talking about the struggles they face as people of the sandwich generation, trying to take care of other kupuna while also trying to take care of their own kupuna. So it's trying to create a space where people can be held with each other, but also creating space to be critical of the ways we talk about and think about the work that we do. For example, me and Lindsey have been talking a lot recently about when we talk about the silver tsunami, are we doing more harm than good by positioning aging as something as harmful as a natural disaster? And what happens when we instead see older populations as an achievement of decades of public health work? I think how Lindsey talked about aging earlier reflected that. And then also, are we also learning from each other, each other's stories and the things happening in Hawaii, or are we accidentally creating a sense that nothing is getting done? And so we're still trying to figure out the best ways to ask these questions and move these conversations forward. But starting in spaces like this, with folks like you who are also on the front lines, we think evolving the narrative by bringing these questions to light will be really critical to the future and our present work as well. We know we aren't the first and won't be the last. We know we aren't even the ones that have the most expertise or authority to speak to all the issues about aging in Hawaii that comes up, but we're doing what we can to work together, not apart, and uplift those who in our communities are doing the hard work of making real change happen. Mahalo for listening, and we invite you to learn more and maybe even connect by joining our newsletter and becoming a member, and just, let us know if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much. And those are just our email is kupunacollective@hifi.org, and then our website is hifi.org/kupuna if you want to learn more. So thank you all.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to encourage people to put either questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask questions. You ended up with something that we at Kokua Mau deal with all the time, which is how do I navigate? And unfortunately, people think there is a system, but there is not a system. So, Hope always laughs, but I say don't use the S word, because people think that there is a way to move easily and quickly through our system, and that is not the case. So we, one of the things we really try to do is help people understand, especially the serious illness piece, but get people prepared. And we've found, especially lately, or I shouldn't say especially lately, for years we've talked about not necessarily documents. Documents are good, but having conversations, what matters to you, talking with your family, understanding what options there are. So we are very, we look forward to working with you guys more on that, and that would be great. Unfortunately, people usually don't want to know about what we do until it's an emergency. So we're all about preventing crisis, get people to talk early, get things in place, understanding what might be available, especially around serious illness. So we love it that people live long, healthy lives, and we also want people to have quality of life until their last breath. And the other piece that I'm interested in hearing more about what you're doing is caregivers. I think that we just, we already have a crisis, and it's going to get worse. There's so many people who are caring for people at home without the support that they could have. So I'd love to know more about what you're doing with caregivers and how people can be a part of those efforts.
Yeah, I'll take that. We think of Kūpuna as like the backbones of our society, but also have family, right? Like they're not always we can't talk about Kūpuna in isolation. And so we know, like even for Kiara and I, we don't identify as Kūpuna, but we are hopefully, if we're so lucky, future Kūpuna. Right? So we think although we are the Kūpuna Collective, we're always thinking about current and future Kūpuna, the families that they may be surrounded with, the caregivers that they may have, whether it be family or otherwise, their communities that support them in living and thriving as they age. And so I would say that we definitely aren't the experts in the caregiving space, but we do have a lot of members that are dedicated to that work and do really great work. And we'd be happy to facilitate those connections if you like.
Okay, well, we can, we could keep talking about that, but for us, it's very much the case of how we can help people to learn about what we do with the serious illness space, including hospice, palliative care, but also trying to help people be more prepared. So, as I say, to be, we say it's better to be 20 years too early than 5 minutes too late. So we really appreciate opportunities to help people understand, and that it's not bakshi to talk about this. As a matter of fact, it is bad luck to not talk about this. So I look forward to talking with you folks more about, ways we can all work together.
Yeah.
There was one comment from Anita wondering if this number of 57,000 people who live alone, is that a statewide number? Is that a...
Yeah, I believe it's a statewide number, but I would be remiss to say that we don't convene the Kūpuna Collective alone. Our co-coordinators are at the University of Hawaii Center on Aging, and they do a lot of our data surveillance and analyzing that data in a way that makes sense for us to use and collective members to use, not only in rapid response, but also long-term recovery responses, long-term efforts to transform our systems of aging, and just building better community conditions for our Kūpuna and people of all ages. And so I'll throw in the chat, this is a link to their story map. They've only done Honolulu County for now, but the plan is to do every county, hopefully eventually. But if you scroll down, there's a little bit more information of folks who live alone. And also grandparents who live with grandchildren, and everything is parsed out by zip code, so you can get that real granular data as well.
I encourage people to sign up for the newsletter. Usually Hope attends your meetings because I have another national meeting at the same time, but it's always full of really good information and, things that can be of use to everybody. So I encourage people to get on that newsletter. There's good information. And as we said, if we can all work together, that'll be great.
Yeah, and we would love to do our part, right, to be of service to you folks on the call as well. And so not only is it an open invite for you folks to join this collective, again, there's like no charge or commitment to join. It's basically just to share space with all of our other partners. But we also want to help to highlight all the good work that you folks are doing too. And so it goes both ways.
Yeah, I think, one of the things we try to do at Kokua is bring together people that work in this space. And one of the nice things about Kokua is that we include people from all sorts of different parts of the community. So public health is such a crucial part of a community, but it's often separated from the clinical folks. And, none of that is useful. And it's always good to talk about that, and also to strategize again what it is we can do together. So I had a question. One of the things that's come up for us lately, and for me in particular, is thinking about how we can reach out to different parts of the community and help this, people that care for people, to understand different cultural groups. So I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a talk in October to help people understand Jewish patients. And now we're looking at, are there ways to, what would be next with other groups in our community, recognizing that you can never and should never say, oh, okay, if you are Filipino, you do this, or Japanese, you do that. That's not what we're talking about. It's more of trying to help understand cultural cultural issues so that people can be well cared for. So, Filipino comes up all that's sort of when we talk about which groups would be good. The Filipino community, very diverse, all sorts of things going on. Marshallese community, Chukis community. So are there partners that you folks work with that you could suggest that would be good for us to partner with?
Yeah, absolutely. And we keep talking about this growing Kūpuna population, right? But unfortunately, the workforce and the capacity of that workforce and the funding associated with that workforce isn't in alignment, right? And I think I'm preaching to the choir here, right? It's not necessarily in alignment with the growing needs of this growing population. And so what we're hoping to do, and we've only kind of dipped our toe in this space for now, especially to the Center on Aging as our academia partner and co-coordinator of the collective, is building more of those pathways and career pathways so that the aging network better reflects the diversity of the Kūpuna that we aim to serve, especially here in Hawaii, right? And so one small way we're looking at building that long-term, right, is investing in our community health workers. So many of our community health workers are of the community. That's what defines them, right? Is they're of the community served. They have a unique, intense knowledge and experience working with their own communities. And so if we're able to empower them with the resources they need to do what they do best and malama their kupuna and family members and caregivers in their community, that's one way we see kind of bridging that gap. For now, though, we do have some partners that are of varying sizes and capacity levels that do really great work in faith-based spaces, in cultural groups, in language. And one thing that we're able to leverage at Hi-Fi is that we are kind of like a mid-range, mid-sized nonprofit. And so we're able to kind of absorb some of the administrative tasks and financial and grant management things that they may not necessarily have the capacity to do because they're on the front lines, right? And so if we can help to absorb some of those tasks so that they can do what they do, that's one way we've been able to support them through the collective. And a lot of times we'll act as an intermediary and do some sub-granting and things like that. So yeah.
Good. So we'll keep talking about that then. I want folks to know who may not know that we actually have, from the Kokua side, have really been trying to train community health workers. Hope has been doing trainings with them through KCC. We've given talks through Hi-Fi about advanced care planning, palliative care, hospice, those sorts of things. We actually had our first community health worker intern this year who did a mapping project of what was available for people with serious illness on the Waianae coast. So I hope that folks from various places, including hospices out there, will think about community health workers as part of the team. So some smart person said it's much easier for us to teach community health workers about the work we do and then for us to learn Marshallese. So if we just think about how much work would it be for us to go out and become a part of different communities, and the community health workers that we've talked to, I would say that this has been a very, very productive training and conversation. And, I remember the first time we talked with community health workers, like hoping this is the right group. It was like, oh, can I interrupt you? Because I have this Kūpuna and she needs to do the advanced directive, but she needs, and it was like, okay, so these are people who understand why documents are important, why the family stress and dynamics are important, understanding what type of care is important. And I will say Hope was doing a training at KPT, and she's been there now 3-4 times. And finally somebody said, are you telling me that hospice comes to the house and supports us? And it took that long, I think, for the trust to be there and to misunderstandings about what hospice is. And in the meeting, she said, okay, I can't participate anymore because I have somebody who has to get into hospice today. And she was texting to say, like, this is what we've been looking for and we need this. So sometimes it also takes a long time or longer time so that for us all to speak the same language, to understand what this is. And for me, it's often just so clear when people have had not great experiences with healthcare. Why would they think that hospice is so, hospice is a great type of care for people? Why would they expect that? Because nothing else in healthcare is that good. So I'm glad you bring up community health workers, and I'm encouraging, that my hospice colleagues that I see here on the call, I'm happy to talk to you more. And they're looking for interns, placements for interns. They have a lot of funds now have come, so it's actually free labor to help people better understand, so for this. So I'm a big proponent of community health workers. So thank you for that. Again, I encourage everybody to get onto the newsletter and learn about some of these things that are going on out in our community, and to join the Kūpuna Collective. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm so glad that you guys came today. Thank you very much.